Welcome in, Sneeples. Every set we come out with premium limited content, and this one is no different. High Seas is here, and the pre-releases are this weekend. So I'm gonna help to get you prepared for these pre-releases so that you can not only do well, but take this information and use it for nationals. Whether you're participating in the nationals event or the calling, High Seas Limited is going to be a big part of this coming meta. And before I get started with all of this, I do have a Patreon, and I will have a sealed ranking guide for each card in the set. If you want to have access to that, consider becoming a Patreon. The link is below. You'll have access to what cards are good for sealed. I will be making a draft ranking list later on as well. So, if you're interested in that, check that out. Now let's talk about High Seas. And with High Seas out, there is a lot of new heroes, new classes, and even new cards. One of the biggest things that is new is the pirate class. Every hero is a pirate, and so there's going to be a ton of pirate cards that we are going to be talking about. We also get two other new classes, that being the Necromancer and Thief. We will be covering those, or what type of cards can make a good Necromancy and Thief card. There's even another new aspect to Limited, and that is the Macro. This landmark is going to be a gold producing engine. It's going to help heroes be able to use their abilities by obtaining gold in a much easier way. Which is going to be a big factor when we're talking about gameplay. But before we get into that, let's talk about what we do when we're at a sealed event. Alright, first thing is first, I say this every time and it still applies. You want to open up your packs and sort out your cards. Alright, you're going to have a Mechanologist pile, a Necromancer pile, a Ranger pile, a Pirate pile, a generic pile. You're also going to put aside any Majestics that you pull. Majestics tend to be bombs of the set, and so you want to have them in a separate area so that you can review each one, because that's going to be a big influence on which hero you decide to pick. Once you have all your piles, let's talk about what cards we're looking for to decide which hero we're going to be. When we are talking about a Puffin deck, we're going to be looking for a few things. First off is cog generation. Alright, with Puffin's abilities, we want to be able to generate cogs from her ability by converting a gold into a cog, but also by playing cards that produce cogs. In this way, Gold Wing Turbine is a very, very good Puffin card. It is a common, you can expect to see a few of them, and the more you have, the more turns that you can use Puffin's ability and play this card to crank 2 cogs in order to draw a card with Puffin's second ability. So this card essentially can replace itself and pump up your next Mechanologist attack, which is very, very good. That's why we like to have cog generation. You could also be playing the Copper Cog. The Copper Cog is a cog itself that you can crank out. As long as you're cranking twice a turn, you are doing what you want to be doing as Puffin and drawing a card. This is the power of Puffin. This allows Puffin to go a little bit wider than Gravy Bones and Arlen. Speaking of going wide, you want to look for a lot of go-again attacks. Cloud Skimmer and Sky Skiff are very good go-again attacks that can allow you to have a much higher chain as long as you have cogs. Which, with the Macro, as long as you're dealing damage, you're creating gold, and as long as you're using Puffin's ability, you're creating cogs. So cogs are the game plan here. Anything that can create you more cogs is very, very important because it allows for so much synergy to be played with them. Even your equipment, Rust Belt and Unicycle, want you to have cogs. And these are very good equipments for your cogs. The other thing I want to mention is that Puffin has the ability to choose between 2 weapons. She has the Blunderbuss and the Spitfire. When you're deciding which weapon is best for your deck, look at the overall deck build up for your Puffin. If your deck is very, very aggressive, you can go very wide, maybe you have a lot of go again, both in Mechanologist, but also in generic stuff like Scar for Scar, Life for Life, then going super wide and ending on a Spitfire may be the right decision. If you instead don't have so much go wide stuff, but you have very good big attacks, like maybe some of these big pirate attacks or some of these big mechanologist attacks, you can go Blunderbuss, which can give itself go again with the cog, into one of these big mechanologist attacks. So you can always swing about 2 attacks a turn, and that's what you want to do with Puffin. You want to swing about 2 attacks a turn. If you have the Spitfire build, you're swinging about 3 attacks a turn. With the Spitfire build, you only need about 8 to 10 blues. The reason why you don't need so many blues is you're going to have a lot of free attacks, but you still want a few blues here and there. Just you can always use them to destroy a goal to draw a card. Now with the Blunderbuss, you want 10 to 12 blues. Blunderbuss does require 2 resources to be able to fire, so you want to make sure you're able to fire your Blunderbuss as well as do something else. The other card I'd like to mention is Perk Up. Perk Up is another common card, so it's a card that you could see that untaps your hero. Just like how important it is to make cogs, by untapping your hero, it essentially allows you to have the opportunity to make another cog, as long as you have a good amount of gold. And with Puffin, because you're attacking every turn, you're going to be threatening to make a lot of gold. Let's move on to our next hero. Gravy Bones. What do we need to look for in order to have a good Gravy Bones pool? Well, first off, we're looking to have 5 to 6 allies. Now, you're not guaranteed an ally in every pack. Some packs will have 0, some will have 2. So you aren't necessarily guaranteed to even reach 5 to 6 allies. But with 8 packs, there's a fairly good shot you will. Because you want to see allies in certain matchups, particularly against Marlin. But you don't want to play anything more, because having more than 1 ally in your hand can really jam up your hand and make it a very bad turn. With Gravy Bones, you also want to have a ton of blues. And if they're blue block 3s, even better. Gravy Bones, you want to have a minimum of 12 with a maximum of 15. Personally, I like 14 blues, but that's about the range you want to have. You want to have so many blues because blues are going to help you play big attacks in the beginning, big pirate attacks or big generic attacks in the beginning, and then in the end game is when you're going to be playing out your allies. And if you have big allies like Swabby that cost a little bit more, you can be able to play him and attack him on the same turn. Having utility blues such as Mutiny, but any of the Mutiny cards, can allow you to use these blues to put into the graveyard so that you can activate Watery Grave mechanic to be able to play out your allies. And then finally, the general game plan with Gravy Bones and why you want so many blues is you tend to draw a lot off of gold in the end game. You tend to just amount a big pile and then just keep drawing cards off of gold. When you're using this to get a turn sequence going to where you can have, so you can go against with Swiftwater Sloop into ally attack. Maybe you're using Peg Leg, that requires a blue to activate, and then maybe you're ending with like a big Battalion Baroque. So you're going to want a good amount of blues to be able to set something of this nature up, as well as just be able to, on turns in the early to mid game, be able to just pitch a blue to swing 7 or 6 at your opponent. Going back to allies, I want to mention that not all allies are built the same. Some allies are very much more valuable than others. I've been very impressed with all the rare allies, of course, but when we're talking about the common allies, Barnacle, Chowder, Rigor Mortis, and Swabby all have performed very well. Cutty Shark and Shelly can do pretty good things if your opponent is not worrying about your allies, but if they do decide to attack your allies, then these cards fall a little short even though they have a good defense. Another thing to kind of look for are cards that can put allies into your graveyard. Jittery Bones and Restless Bones, particularly blue, are very good because by being blue, you can put the ally from the grave into the graveyard and then close the combat chain, allowing that blue attack to go into the graveyard to allow you to play an ally afterwards. Now, the more allies you can discard from the top of your deck rather than from your hand, the better it can be. So, using your compass to have the knowledge of what's on top of your deck is very good. But you can also use this for non-ally cases, such as with Murderous Rabble or Ravenous Rabble. You can make sure it's a good time to attack with that with that attack, because you know what's on top of your deck. Swiftwater Swell is another instant where if you can see that it's blue on top, you can attack with Swiftwater Swell and get the free extra resources. So there's a lot of advantages of having the compass as your offhand so that you can see what cards you can work with. Now let's move over to Marlin. And here again, we have 2 weapons to work with. So with Marlin's ability, you're going to want to have a good amount of gold so that you can always make a harpoon. But a harpoon becomes especially good when you're running the cannon, all right, the hammerhead cannon. This allows your harpoons to have overpower, which is very big in this game. There is no defense reactions other than one that's a majestic and necromancer, but there's no other defense reactions. So because there's no other defense reactions, unless they have a block card, overpower is going to be leaking in a lot of damage. So when you're running a hammerhead build, you're going to want to run about 12 blues. 10 to 14 is kind of the range. I would stick around 12. If you can do 12 blues, you usually have enough to activate the cannon so that you can get the +4, you can get the overpower, and then you can shoot your harpoon. Now do know that in order to put an arrow into the arsenal to shoot it, you do need to draw a card. With Marlin's ability, you can then load the arrow in. In order to get the harpoon, you need to use Marlin's ability to destroy a gold to turn into a harpoon. So you're going to want to kind of stockpile your gold up so that you can have 2 gold a turn to be able to draw a card and load a harpoon. Be sure to make the harpoon first and then draw the card. I saw a lot of people forget that. Do that in that sequence so that you can load and shoot. Another thing to note when you're building a cannon is that there's not very many harpoons out there. There's a few rares and the rest are majestics. So you're not going to get a ton of harpoons in your build. So you're going to want to use your golden harpoon more often than not. Another thing to pair with any Marlin deck is pumps. Nimblism is a good one, calling big guns, monkey powder. These are just pumps that help your harpoon come in for a massive amount of damage. But as mentioned, they're also good in the Manta build. So let's talk about the Manta build. This is a much more gold-wide build. You're going to be looking for very cheap arrows, the zero-cost arrows, especially the Swift Shot. This one having go again is huge. Ideally, you're going to be playing 2 to 3 attacks a turn and paying basically nothing, all right? You can make this very red line heavy. You do still want to have about 8 to 10 blues. So again, here, if you make gold, you can always use blue to crack a gold to draw a red and have a resource loading for maybe your headshot or your sick'em shot that has go again. So you can make use of blues all the same because of the gold tokens, but you generally are going to be running less because you want to come in very, very wide. There's even cards like Fire in the Hole that lets you untap your bow, allowing you to activate your bow again to shoot yet another arrow. So there is a lot of go again abilities with the Manta bow. And if you are finding a lot of generic go agains, if you're finding a lot of swift shots in your build, in your Marlin build, then going the Manta route would be much more preferable. And finally, let's talk about our bonus hero, the hero that was spoiled to us at World Premiere, and that is Scurv. Scurv, being a pirate thief, means he really only has access to pirate and generic cards, as there is no thief cards in this set. That's okay though, because his ability allows us to go very wide, giving us a gold kiss rum so that we can crack it and be able to have go again on our attacks. So with Scurv, keeping that in mind, we're going to be playing a lot of zero cost attacks. Now, you do still want to play big pirate attacks. You can kind of have a hybrid of go big turn and go wide turns. Going big allows you to get your gold so you can set up a gold kiss rum. And then when you have your gold kiss rum, you can do your gold go wide turns. So you're going to be kind of alternating between going big and going wide as Scurv. Do know that when you make your rum, you cannot use it that turn because you need to tap your hero. to make rum, and then you need to tap your hero to use the rum. So just know you're going to have to do a lot of setup. Despite there not being thief cards in the set, you do have pirate cards that work better if you are a thief. Cards like Thief Environment, Lost in Transit, and Light Fingers all have additional abilities if you are a thief. So these cards are very good, and I would look to play each of these as they will give you additional benefits when attacking with them or blocking with them. Now, how do we know if we have a good Scurv deck? Well, basically speaking, if you have Scurv, because you do have to open him to play him. If you have Scurv, play Scurv. That's been my honest opinion. He's been the most fun. I've been quite enjoying him. If you have a lot of like 0 for 4 attacks or 1 for 5s, and you have a good amount of go-agains like Ravenous Rabble, Scar for Scars, you can make a very good Scurv deck happen. And I'd highly encourage it. You do have the ability to get fatigue. You do not have a weapon that can attack every turn. You do have Sticky Fingers, but Sticky Fingers can be attacked, and if Sticky Fingers is attacked, then you're out of a weapon. So be sure to be a little bit conservative when playing with Sticky Fingers. Let's talk about some of just the overall good pirate and generic cards. So the HMSs are the pirate ships that can have overpower and have an on-hit ability. Even if that on-hit ability doesn't really apply, like maybe you're doing the one that destroys an ally, but you're going against Puffin, who has no allies, it still can be a 7 attack overpower. And so all of the HMSs are very good cards to be played with. Battalion Baroque is another good card, particularly in blue. This is a great card to pitch early in the game and to play late in the game. But the red and yellow ones aren't bad either. Just having a very gold-tall turn that with a card that can just block 3 if it doesn't work out can be very solid in this limited environment. This game tends to go a little bit longer than like with the Hunted. It'd be more similar to like Rosetta. So you're probably going to go into fatigue mode where your opponent is going to have no cards left in their deck. This is fine when you're coming in with big attacks like these, so that's why you want to look out for the ships. Saltwater Swell is also a banger of a card. This card potentially adds so much pitch to your turn that it can make your turn going from something where it's just an okay average fat math turn to all of a sudden now this turn is busted. If at the very least it could have the potential for you just to draw a card off the goal. And then finally, I want to mention Chart a Course, because Chart a Course is a pump that can pump up some of these big overpowered ships or just be able to pump up any attack, as well as adding a gold counter on Treasure Island so that you can get more gold. This card is very good. I'd highly recommend playing the red and blues, even the blues if you're like a Gravy Bones deck, which doesn't really attack more than once. When you get to that final turn, you can make that blue work. You'll find that you'll be attacking with 3 cards. And if that comes up, if you're able to play the blue as well, it's all the better. So definitely look out for Chart a Course in red and blues. The yellow's okay as well. Now, generic cards, I want to talk about Nimbleism. Nimbleism package is real. First off, you have Nimbify, which can go and grab a Nimbleism. This card is busted in Scurv. If you can have Nimbleism and Nimbify, that is a great combination to have in Scurv, because you can Gold Kiss Rum, the Nimbify, so it has go again. You can find a Nimbleism. It could be red or blue, depending on whatever you need. If you need to pitch, blue. If you need the pump, red. And then send it immediately, which is really nice. However, if you aren't Scurv, Nimbify can still work out pretty well, especially if you're Marlin. You can play the Nimbify, go and grab Nimbleism, arsenal it, so that you can play it next turn and potentially pump up your overpower Harpoon attack. Another thing to look out for with Nimbleism, other than Nimbify, is the equipment. Quick Clicks and Swift Strike Bracers are very good equipment pieces that you can get hella value from playing your Nimbleisms that turn. Another thing to look out for is the Jack B. Nimbles and Jack B. Quick cards. Now these are rare, so you might not see them, but if you do and you have Nimbleism, then these cards become extremely better. They get go again, they get +1, and then if you don't have Nimbleism, they can still just block for 3. Alright, so being a 0 for 4 that has go again and blocks for 3 is extremely good. Now you do need to have a Nimbleism in your graveyard so that you can banish it to get the full effect. But when you have stuff like Nimbify that helps grab a Nimbalism, you can see how that's not a very hard thing to have. Crash Down the Gates is also a very good card. Tempo Fab Map card, with the red being a good potential 3 for 8. These are like wounded bull numbers. So I highly recommend, if you have a red, blue, or yellow Crash Down, then I would recommend playing with them. You do have the amulets, all the amulets that have water grave on them. If you're Gravy Bones, go ahead and play them. If you're not Gravy Bones, then I would hesitate playing them. They are a no block blue. They're a great turn 0, but that's really just about it. So generic go-agains are always good. I've mentioned that quite a bit with some of these other heroes. Finally, I want to talk about On the Horizon, especially in red. On the Horizon is a very good block card. Overpower is very real in this format. Everyone has access to the HMS ships, and then Marlin's going to be using her cannon bow to give overpower, so you want to have a good amount of block cards. And On the Horizon red is a very good block card to keep alive. So even though I'm not huge on block cards, when a format has so much overpower, they do become much better to play with. So I do recommend putting in On the Horizon in your sealed deck. There's the strategies for each hero and what cards you want to be looking for when making these decks. Now if you're kind of stuck between 2 different heroes to choose from, maybe you got a pretty good Gravy Bones and a pretty good Scurv pool and you're not sure which one, you can always look at the equipments to see what equipments you have work best with what heroes, as well as those majestic bombs. That is my High Seas Limited advice for you. I just want to give a big thank you to our sponsors, King's Tables, Metal Fab Tokens, Flesh and Baubles. We very much appreciate all of our folks that are our YouTube members, as well as Patreon members. And again, if you wish to have a rankings of each card for sealed, then be sure to become a Patreon. We got some more videos coming out. I will be coming out with a comprehensive draft guide, so be sure to stay tuned for that. But until then, keep on fabbing.